Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We are going to that horrible world known as the JRC, but first, the usual disclaimers. And also, I apologize, but don't apologize for my appearance this evening. And I apologize profoundly if the computer has just turned me into Vader. I don't like to re-edit these videos. They're long and they're emotionally grueling, so I just put them up as they are. So, sorry about that. Oh, folks, what a weekend it has been. Wow. I still can't, comprehend that everything's going to be okay now. Like, my body cannot compute. Seriously, the stress of literally the last decade, and to have that gone in an instant. I was even able to afford to finally get myself a new pair of jeans and some, very excited, Halloween jammies. Because I live in jammies, folks. I work for a call center, but I get to do it from home. You better bet I'm spending it in my jammies. To the disclaimers, shall we? I apologize for any after effects of fall allergies. In the description box, you're going to find the link to the article that the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center doesn't want you to read. It's written by NeuroClastic, a small non-for-profit started by autistics for autistics, wherein they interviewed and surveyed over 800 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program. Matter of fact, the JRC doesn't want you to read this article so much. They've threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. Well, folks, NeuroClastic has refused, so you know the drill. Please read the article and share it on all your social media. Also included in there is NeuroClastic's public statement in regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding in case the JRC actually sees through with their threat. Also included in there, the Ozarks' first article in regards to Agape Boarding School, also now known as Stone for Help boarding school situation, a so-called Christian-themed boarding school based out of Stockton, Missouri that takes in so-called troubled male teens, that has and pending over 21 civil lawsuits, claims, and allegations leveled against it, all which have been substantiated by the Missouri Department of Social Services, and they include the following: sodomy, rape, sexual assault, child abuse, psychological and emotional abuse, child trafficking, starvation, and that's just for starters. Excuse me one moment. You have one staff member arrested by the FBI, another a doctor, still on the premises, with full access to the boys up on multiple, again, substantiated claims of sodomy, rape, and sexual assault of the boys there. You have an attorney general too busy chasing after drag queens and trying and failing to defund public libraries to actually, do his job. And you got a governor off his nut, so send help, read that article, share it on all your social media. We got the other pertinent links to the Stop the Shocks campaign as well, including Autistic Hoya's massive archive on the subject. Excuse me. Jennifer Masumba's behavioral sheet of shockable offenses, a clip out of the 7-hour ordeal undergone by Andre McCollins back in 2002, the templates, and the ever-present, very self-explanatory Change.org shut the Judge Rotenberg Center down petition. When we discuss the JRC, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with disabilities being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, folks, please go ahead and use those headphones, alright? Alright, folks, we mark this channel not for kids for a reason. We use profanity on occasion and speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and they're watching this, very obviously parental supervision is very much advised, alright? Now, to address something that has been told to me ad nauseum at this point. I'm getting tired of DMs, alright? I am well aware of how small this channel is. I'm well aware of the fact that it seems to be stagnant, where it both goes back and then goes back to where it was previously, okay? I've also been told by others that this is due to the fact that this has been, for a while, since 2021, a one-topic channel. I understand this. Few things, though. I only got so much time in a day. I preload these videos because during the week I need to sleep. I work for a call center. If I do not get enough sleep, you don't want to see what my mental health looks like. It's bad as it is. You don't want to see what it looks like without enough sleep, alright? Also, to state, while we're speaking on the subject, I understand there are big things going on right now. You've got Me Too having lost their damn minds again. Who surprised? No one. You've got the media, once again, just screaming for you to cancel someone before you have all the facts in hand. Who's surprised? No one. You've got the Danny Masterson Scientology thing. I get it. I understand. This is what's most pertinent to me. Okay? If you couldn't tell. Do I have opinions on other matters? Sure I do. But when it comes down to it, what is happening to my own at places like the JRC, places like Agape, the troubled teen industry, and yes, some of the special education schools, what's happening in the public schools right now to disabled kids while we speak, the massive number that goes up every year on disabilitymemorial.org. I'm sorry, but that is my focus. It has literally always been my focus. Mainly because these other issues, they get aired out in the media. They're going to talk about Russell Brand for the next 2 to 3 months. They're going to talk about Manson from Kingdom Come because they've been talking about him since he first came out and made it big, okay? They've been talking about all these Me Too men ad nauseum for years on end. It gets all the publicity in the world. These liars get all the publicity in the world. But the real survivors, like teens from Agape, teens from Circle of Hope, places like the JRC, the multiple deaths that happen every year in public schools all across the country and around the world from improper restraint and misuse of aversives and misuse and abuse of power, go untalked about. Those who have died go untalked about. The survivors staring their abusers in the face, holding them to account, who are disabled or have mental health issues, go untalked about. That is part of the reason why I do what I do and why I do everything I can to put a spotlight on it. I'm not trying to make a living out of this, obviously. It's never going to happen. Okay? Nor do I care to whether or not I get a massive following. If I do, that's fantastic. More people to help fight against places like this. But at the end of the day, folks, when I talk to you about the power of the small, what I'm referring to is the fact that one tiny, small, little channel can influence one new person. And that new person is going to tell others. And then they will tell others. And quite frankly, I don't care if they source my channel or another video or whether they use autistic Hoyas. It's being talked about. People are getting angry. People are joining in. A slow trickle, yes, but they're joining. That is what matters to me. It matters to me more than you know. I go to bed every night with the screams from Andre McCollins in my head. I wake up with them. I wake up with my thoughts never far from disabled survivors. Okay? And their grieving parents, I might add. Remember, I had to deal with a particular case of an autistic boy when I was in my place as the advocate specialist, who came to my office begging for help because the state would not allow him to get services. Him and his mother in tears. I spent all week looking for an answer for them, and finally found the connection that could finally help them to get services through the Centers of Independent Living. When I called to give them that news, the boy, who could not take his father's physical abuse anymore, as well as the schools and the bullies, hung himself. Okay? This is extremely serious, what I do. There really are actually lives at stake. Alright? Alright. Because I'm tired of addressing it. I mean, tired. I use this channel and this tiny platform to give voices to those who the media continues to ignore and treat like they don't exist and like what happened to them doesn't matter. That's what this channel is for. Alright? Now let's get into it. Hopefully we'll make it short and sweet because that rant went a little bit longer than I intended. State regulation of aversives in private, special, and alternative education programs varies, if anything, more wide than pertaining to the use in public schools. The most consistent thing about these rules is that they generally fall under licensing regulations for certain types of facilities. This part. So what we have is a list of guidelines, a list of rules that these folks have to be able to say that they're meeting to continue to have a license to run their school. Okay? There's a problem with that. Because when you run into a situation like the JRC, where their pull with the courts, their level of corruption, and the high-powered people that they have wrapped around their little fingers, means those kids get no protection. And it means that the general guidelines, in order to continue to be licensed every single year, that every other school in the state of Massachusetts has to follow, the JRC doesn't. And if you think the other schools aren't learning from this, they are. It didn't work for Agape, but they still tried to pull it. Okay? There's too many loopholes in state laws. State laws are so vague that the so-called protections that they provide can be skated around. I mean, like Moses walking through the Red Sea there, okay? They're not bulletproof. They're not explicit enough. They do not provide enough protections. Point blank, period. There's a few places who do, like Rivendell, but that's because they have advocate consultants who actually share the diagnosis of the individuals who are going to a particular school. Even in that respect, however, there is a lot of variation in terms of which agencies are in charge of promulgating and enforcing these regulations, what type of programs that they regulate, and what they allow, ban, and restrict. Now, there's a lot of states like mine, and it's the same with Massachusetts, that the agencies that take care of this in regards to licensing comes through the state. For my place, it's the same folks I worked for an untold amount of years. The Department of Mental Health, Division of Developmental Disabilities. That particular department covers so many things, folks, that there was a reason why I was run ragged, only working about 4 to 5 hours a day. Okay? Okay? That falls under that umbrella. It's the same for the majority of the states out there. All right? But you do have those few that you can't even tell what department is supposed to cover what. It's absolute, it's chaos. And I don't mean the fun kind. Like randomly taking off to Rob Zombie's theme park. Yes, it's a bucket list thing, okay? Me and my brother have a bucket list together. One of those is going to that theme park. We regret nothing. Moving on, the seclusion and aversives in public school, they vary in strength. The enforcement options under all of these different types of regulations include investigations by relevant state agencies and possible loss of license in the case of confirmed violations. Here's the problem, though. When you are dealing with departments like mine was, which is already stretched thin, folks. Remember what I told you? The GOP every year likes to diminish how much money we are getting from the state heads. Yeah. Want to know what some of that money generally covers? Let me tell you. Gas. To be able to provide food for those that you are having to go investigate this. It costs manpower. It costs a lot of things that a lot of us, different departments, can't afford, all right? There's a lot wrong there. Just saying. Recent renewal of interest in the subject of aversives have led to a number of states passing new or additional laws and regulations on their use in recent years. In 2010, the New Hampshire passed such a statute protecting children in schools and treatment facilities, supplementing its existing regulations on the use of aversives in public schools. I want to bring up something. Because even though there's those protections out here and in Massachusetts, they don't apply to other types of schools. In particular, Agape, JRC, a lot of the terrible teen industry. They skirt around it. They skirt around it by means of these public schools using their money to place the student in one of the places like this. It's a different ball game with public schools and private schools. You can be a private special ed or troubled teen industry school and get away with using aversives on the kids with impunity, I might add. With ne'er even the smallest of laws to protect us from it. Okay? So schools can sit there saying, we're protecting the children raw, all they want to. But when I sit there and I look and I see you've sent 10 kids to hellholes like Agape and JRC, I'm going to call bullshit. I'm going to call major bullshit. All right? Just saying. This might help in public schools, yes. But what public schools have a tendency to do a lot of times, especially in elitist scumbag areas like Massachusetts, is they pass the problem to someone else. Okay? So those protections do not follow us from public schools into these private settings, which are very rarely monitored, if at all. Okay? This statute limited restraint use to situations in which there is substantial and imminent risk of bodily harm to the child or others. It further banned all restraint aside from relatively safe forms of physical restraint as well as other kinds of aversives outright. With regards to the type of physical restraint that the statute allows for, it imposed a number of restrictions, including permissible duration of, monitor of the student by staff during, and staff training for use of restraint. This is crucial, folks. This is crucial because a lot of these schools can't send their staff to go get trained. Let's be real here. They send one guy. We're going to call him Carl. Carl has one job. He gets to training. It is his job to come back to the school and train the other staff in how to do things properly. Carl is overwhelmed. He has a class of about 50 students about every hour and a half. He's got a stack of papers to grade that makes the ones that used to be on my table pale in comparison. He is overwhelmed. He's exhausted. All right? Carl has one job, but Carl has multiple other jobs within the frame of just being a teacher or a staff. Okay? So even though Carl may know how to do these things as they are properly mandated by state and local law, the rest of the staff does not. So what happens if he takes the day off, the only one that they could afford to send, and there's an incident that requires some form of restraint, and it's done by individuals who are not trained? Let that sink in, folks. And let's go ahead and continue. In terms of reporting requirements, it established that teachers, schools must provide both parents, the school's own administrators, and the state of Departments of Education, of Health, and Human Services with information on incidents involving the use of restraint. I'll go that step forward, and I would say that the parent should be involved way before then. That you do not have the right to use any kind of aversive therapy or restraint without explicit permission from the parents. Period. Our public schools tend to forget that the kids going through their doors are not their kids. And they abuse their power. For neurotypical kids and atypical kids alike. I mean, we've seen it in the news, haven't we? The school doesn't have to report this to the parents. Sorry, but federal law says the fuck you don't. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Okay? Yes, you do. You just don't get to do whatever the hell you want to these kids, especially the kids who are autistic or otherwise disabled and those with mental health issues, and just never do anything properly. Keep throwing stuff until it doesn't stick, and when you get frustrated, because this is what happens, folks. When all the stuff that they throw at the wall doesn't stick, when they get frustrated, what do you think happens? What do you think happens? You need to involve the parents, teachers. This is not a request. It is a demand. If you do not ask the parents for permission to use any form of restraint or aversives, you should consider that as a no. unless told otherwise by the parents. Kids are under their parents' authority, point blank, period. And quite frankly, I am tired of watching schools essentially run down and run over and back over 3 times over parents and their rights when it comes to their own damn kids. Now, do I think we should be removing all LGBTQ stuff from a library? No. That's just stupid. Just because reality doesn't reflect the magical 1950s world that you want to be in does not mean a school has to remove that content. That's called you be a parent. Okay? It's real simple. That being said, though, being sneaky, trying to find legal loopholes behind the parents, that's not okay. You have no legal authority over those kids except for the minimal allowed you to educate them. That's all you got. All right? I'm going to close on that. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few that we do get do tend to get removed from time to time. So, folks, if you could, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time. And as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea hope you have a good one. Bye-bye, everyone.